Welcome to TSW Comics, a monthly look between the covers of Marvel's Star Wars comic book series. Hello everyone, welcome back to TSW Comics. I'm Mark.
And I'm Rob Cast.
And we're back with another monthly look between the covers of the Marvel comics for Star Wars. Amazing comics this month.
Yes, wow, to say the least.
Yeah, big news and some exciting stuff. I'm really disappointed I didn't get a chance to catch up on everything I bought this month because I got the Lando. You know, you said about picking up the Lando complete run, so I picked up the Lando run. I haven't had a chance to read it, and I haven't got a chance to catch up with Afra yet. I'm still way behind on Afra, but I did get to finish Maul, and I am up to speed with Vader. So I'm ready to go. So how's your month been of Star Wars comic collecting?
Well, I'm right up to date but that's like I said, I've got standing orders at my store to if it says Star Wars, you pull it.
Yeah,
you mean I know because there's so many. This is the shame, and I just want a quick public service announcement. For these comic book store owners, I know a lot of them are very small business, and if you go in there and you say, okay, I want all of my Captain America, all of my Darth Mauls, if you say you want them pulled, what they do is they order a certain amount to have on their shelves, and then they order a little bit more to cover the pull list. Now, if you have a standing pull list, and they keep pulling for you, and you don't go and pick up your books, they're on the hook for those books. Yeah. Now, obviously, it's at cost, but still, most of them are small business owners. So, I implore anybody, if you have a pull list out there, if money gets tight and you can't afford it, no problem. Just make sure you cancel whatever books you don't want, because you see month after month, so many small business comic book store owners are stuck with these extra copies, and then they can stay on the shelves, but it's needless waste. And it's not like a lot of other. I know here in Canada, a lot of convenience stores, if you have Time magazine and you don't sell them all, all they do is they rip off the covers, and then when they get their new shipment, they send in the old covers back. So Time magazine knows, okay, these aren't sold. They're not selling them on the side. So with you ripping the cover off, it obviously means you're destroying the original copy. Mm-hmm. So they don't need you to ship the whole magazine back just to save on shipping costs. So then they'll be credited for their next order because they want you to have that book on your stand, on your magazine stand.
Yeah.
But with comic books, it's not the case. When the comic book store orders the book, they order it, they buy it at their cost, but it's still their cost. They don't get to cut out the proof of purchase and send them back and then get a credit. No, it doesn't work that way. So hopefully, that being said, make sure you pick up your pull list, and if you don't want them, just make sure you mention it. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah, play fair, because these brick and mortar stores, they're having a hard enough time of it as it is, and it's if we are responsible as fans and we keep everybody in the loop with what our buying strategies are, then they get to stick around a little bit longer, hopefully.
Yes, exactly.
It's bad enough that half the hosts on this show buy digital, at least. And
again, I got no problem with digital, but also too I know. Well, of course, if you're from parts unknown, digital is absolutely the way to go. Yeah. I'm lucky. I know even some of our podcast friends from the Tumbling Saber, they're a half hour's drive away from an actual brick and mortar store. Yeah. So it's a pain. It's especially if you got family and kids, and they're just a half hour's drive. That's an hour out of your day just to go grab your pulls.
Exactly. I don't even know where my nearest brick and mortar store is for comic books. I have a look every now and then when if I end up in a supermarket somewhere, and I check out their magazine rack and see if they've got any comic books. It's hit and miss whether or not there be any Star Wars titles there. Usually not. Of course. To be fair. Yeah. But this, I can just pick up what I want when I see it. And with me, if I have to make the journey, I will forget what I'm going for on the way. That's my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm at that age.
I said, we can't change the revolution over to digital, and that's fine. It's just also too, there's a lot of other good stuff. They always have trinkets, and now Funko Pops are everywhere if that's your thing. Always, and hey, if you get a good relationship with your comic books store owner. I know mine. We're great friends now, and he tells everybody about the podcast I'm on, and make sure, if somebody walks in, it's like, hey, you might like that Roman podcast, or I see you're picking up a lot of Star Wars. Check out Talk Star Wars. Like it's a relationship. It's nice to have.
Yeah, it's good. We should give him a shout out, actually, Rob, just in case there's anyone in the area. Who is he? Because I hear you talk about him.
He's
podcast.
Chris. He's Chris at the Retro Rocket. And he runs Retro Rocket Comics and Games here in Cambridge, Ontario. So if you're on Twitter at the Retro Rocket, you can reach out to him. And if you're passing through the area, Cambridge, Ontario, not the UK, obviously.
Yeah.
but yeah, he'd be happy to help. He's a great guy, and he's always on the ball with me. So
excellent, good. It's nice that people can get a recommended retailer, because they're often hard to come by.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, right. Should we discuss some of this month's Star Wars news? Because there are a couple of really interesting news stories. What I'm going to do this month, actually, Rob, I'm going to publish the show notes.
Okay.
Along with the episode, because someone was asking, I think it was Jared last month, was asking if we ever published the show notes we used to run the show, and usually I don't, but I thought this month maybe I will, just purely because of that blue face right there, looking pretty awesome. So the big, I'd say the marquee news story this month is that Tim Zahn's Thrawn novel is being, or naval, as I've put in the show notes, is being adapted into a short, a 6-issue, I believe it is, 6-issue run from Marvel.
Yes.
Heather Antos is going to edit. Jodie Hauser is going to write, and Luke Ross, a name we'll all be familiar with, is going to be taking on the art responsibility of the art. So this looks and sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. How do you feel about this, an adaptation of the novel, Rob?
I love it. Well, and again, I'm an easy sell for the comics, obviously, but for a lot of people, it's very common actually, where you have a lot of people that don't read so well, or have a dyslexia of some sort, or something, or an impediment that you just can't read a whole novel, like whatever it is. Sometimes comics are just the way to go, and it's to have something on another medium is fantastic. I think it's great.
Yeah, for me, it's about time. It's about having the time to sit down and digest one of these books and give it because sometimes it's a chapter here and a chapter there, and because I'm always doing other things, I'm not giving it 100% attention. I need to be away. Like, I need to be on a holiday, which is where I read Tarkin. I need to be away to be able to do it. But audio books give me a chance to consume those things whilst I'm doing other stuff, like walking the dog or driving to work or whatever. So for me,
but now even podcasts are eating up my audiobook time too.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah, obviously. But Thrawn, the problem in the UK with Audible is that we don't get these premium titles the same time as everybody else. So Thrawn isn't available in Audible for me. So I'd have to spend £40 to buy the audio book separately. So I'm going to have to wait until I can. And I think this might possibly be the best way for me to consume Thrawn, is in a limited run comic book series.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and you get bullet points too.
Yeah.
It's a nice brief, like almost like a Cole's Note version, but you get you don't need so many pages painting you that picture because the artist does it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the heavy work of the description's gone.
Yes. Now we should warn the kids out there, if they're picking up this Thrawn book, don't grab the first book you see of a big blue guy on the cover, because that might be Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen, and that's not for you children.
Yeah, so, you might be getting a little bit more than you bargained for.
Exactly.
or a big bit more than you bargained for.
So just be aware. We're here to help.
Yeah. No, this gets the thumbs up from me. I know Tim wrote a piece on comic book adaptations over on the site, so there's a link in the show notes so you can get Tim's thoughts on everything that's going on with the adaptations.
Tim from the Nerd, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he's looked at the adaptations of The Force Awakens and Rogue One and now Thrawn, and what that means for the way we consume Star Wars. It's not just, I know that when the films come out, I also read the novels, or I have the novels read to me, as I say, for Audible. Right. I have the soundtrack, and now I'm going to have the comic books as well to plow through. So you're seeing the same. It's the same material, but you're getting a slightly different take on it, and you get to control the pace of it.
Yes,
which is quite interesting. So, yeah, this is a good team as well on this book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Gillen, they were both on. Were they both on Afra or were they on Maul? One of the two. I'm sorry, can't quite remember.
Gillen, and that's in the next story. Gillen and the Rocker. Gillen's not attached to this.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Gillen's not attached to this Thrawn book that I know of. It's Jodie Hauser. But yeah, Kieran Gillen and Salvador LaRocca, they're in our next story, which makes for a nice little segue.
Well, that would explain why they're in.
Yeah, that's
why they sound familiar.
Yeah. So this I did not expect. This is a change up for creatives on the Star Wars series. Mm-hmm. And I know you pull the Star Wars series, don't you?
Yes.
Every month. I don't. I read the first couple, but then I didn't go any further. But Star Wars, the main comic book, is getting a new creative team, and that's going to be Kieran Gillen and Salvador LaRocca, who we know from Darth Vader.
Yes.
And they're going to be taking over, and there's a couple of bits connected to this, which I think is really interesting. But this is Kieran Gillen's take on stepping into the Star Wars book. So he says, "My aim is simple: to do what Salva and I did with Darth Vader, but for Leia, Luke, and Han. As in, chart the rise and fall of the rebellion between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, how it changes them, and how it changes the universe. So a simple aim, but it's nightmarishly tricky to pull off, as dropping a proton torpedo down a thermal exhaust. Oh, it's as difficult as dropping a proton torpedo down the exhaust port. But hopefully as thrilling if we pull it off. I can't wait until you all see it. First up, the post-apocalyptic hell that remains of Jedha after the Death Star punched a hole through its mantle." Oh. That really caught my imagination, that we're going to go back to Jedha after the condition we saw it left in Rogue One. How do you feel about, firstly, Kieran and LaRocca taking over the book? Because you already read Star Wars, so how does a change in creative suit you?
Well, actually, we're quite deep into the run now. What are we up to? 25 at least. Yeah,
they come on in issue 38, I believe.
Oh wow, yeah. So I do enjoy them. There are some there's some great highlights there, and of course with a run that long, there's going to be some not down books, but books where they have to, like, a lot of exposition is going on, catching up the reader, because also too, everybody's not going to be like us or myself or Tim from the Nerd Room that has literally read every issue since day one. Yeah. Like, even if you picked them all up today, it would take you the rest of the week to finish it. I like it. I like these two. I love what they did on Darth Vader. I sent you a picture.
Yes.
Through on our, and it's basically just I just snapped a picture of one of the pages from one of the recent issues of Star Wars, the proper title, the main title, and it's Luke and Leia. They're laying in the grass and they're looking up at the stars, and they're so far away from Alderaan that they can actually still see the Alderaan system.
That's incredible.
So yeah, obviously, yeah, because they travel faster than the speed of light. So they're on a faraway planet, and then Leia's like, sometimes wherever I am, I can look up at the sky and still see it.
Oh, that is heartbreaking.
Exactly, but it's one of these. This is, and I just took this just for. I mean, it's now we know in the God's eye view, we know they're brother and sister, but they don't at the time. It's very innocent. They're both looking up at the stars. They're on a planet far away, and this is the thing in comics we kind of get sprinkled in, and it really. For me, anyway, it's what a fan. You got Leia. It's, pardon my French here, but it's such a hard ass. And then she has these moments that are, oh yeah, she is. A deep character with whites and blacks and grays, and like she's everything you think she would be or hope she'd be. But this gives these comics give us a chance to see all this.
Yeah, it's a slightly more sensitive side because we've seen. That at the end of episode 4, she was all business, wasn't she? They did their mission, they're on to the next thing, and then when we next catch up with them, she's still pushing forward. Now on Hoth driving. Then we don't really see her get the chance to sit and take stock of what's really happened, because Star Wars really slows down enough for us to
Well,
do
that's
that.
just it. And this is one of those pages that it works great in a comic book. It's a fantastic sentiment. It's something I never even thought of. And I'm like, wow, this is scientifically, this actually makes sense. Like, yeah, if you're planet below, you wouldn't see the planet. You'd be able to see its star system, but then you'd obviously in your head know, wow, what I'm looking at, because it's over 1,000 light years away, my planet's still in the sky. And that's not something you take 5 minutes for in a movie, because the pace would just grind right to a halt.
Yeah.
But
and
in a comic book,
it's off
fantastic.
book as well, isn't it? It's off the page, the plot. It's outside the plot, so it's something that you can slow down and take that beat in this book, and it still develops those characters, makes a connection between them. It is an incredibly original concept. Something because of not reading the book, I hadn't seen that page before, so I think that's stunning. It's such an original, fresh look at this thing, at this event. Brilliant.
Yeah, and what a perfect, like, just a one page, a few panels, and just perfect to set Leia up as here's the whole Princess Leia. You mean, like, it doesn't take much. Yeah, exactly. So, but back to your point, I love this. I love what we've been getting so far, but this. I like what the new artist and new writer have done in the past. So, because obviously the first Darth Vader run, that's been gangbusters. Like, it's been I think it's been the highlight of the entire Marvel takeover. Yeah,
it is absolutely superb stuff. And obviously we got Aphra out of that, didn't we? So there's plenty of fallout from that Darth Vader run that's set the stage for new Star Wars comic book storytelling.
Yes. And
if they can do something original now, especially with the whole concept of using Jedha, and we got another quote from Gillen in the show notes here, where it's about the trip to our original trilogy heroes making the trip to Jedha, and this is what he says. He said, Luke is desperately seeking the Force, and of course it's one of the holiest cities in the universe, and it's being blown up. The key image is Luke standing in the hole where the Death Star blew a hole in the mantle. So, if you scroll down through the show notes, I've put what will be the cover page for this new run with the trip to Jedha. We get Luke, white-robed Luke with a Skywalker lightsaber, standing in what does look like a post-apocalyptic wasteland, complete with the burnt orange sky on the front cover. Amazing stuff. And
I think with it, when I'm looking at this, it would make sense, because if something hit your planet like that impact in Rogue One from the Death Star, it would ruin like your entire biosphere. Like the whole planet would be like a ecosystem would be done.
It's like nuclear winter. Because we saw the mushroom cloud, that thing threw up into space. Yep. So when that settles down in the atmosphere, that planet's dead. Whether they didn't destroy it, they didn't leave the gravity silhouette, they didn't leave an asteroid field. All they left was a destroyed planet.
Yeah,
and a lot of dead bodies. Some of them even their own people. So.
Oh yeah.
But this is good. I'm looking forward to this. I like these creatives. I love what they did on Vader. I love the concept of going back to Jedha. I like what's implied with Luke going to Jedha, the holy city, with Luke looking for perhaps some Force artifacts, as well as making a connection with the Force itself.
That's been Luke's whole thing recently in the Star Wars comic. It's been, and that's how they teamed him up with Aphra.
Yeah,
I mean, about the going to the Citadel and everything else, and it's his desperate, because right now he's in between. We haven't hit Empire yet on the timeline, so he doesn't know about Yoda, and he's lost Ben, and he's so desperate to get any hint of knowledge of the Jedi or the Force or anything. So basically the comics are him chasing around artifacts or holocrons or obviously now planets and destinations where the Force something he can learn something.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And what a great concept. Can't wait to read it. Very much looking for. I think I'm probably going to jump on there, and if there are any issues that you or any of the listeners can recommend that they think I should go back, if there's an arc within the 38 issues that I've missed, then perhaps I'll go back and I'll dip in and see what I can get out of that. I certainly don't want to miss anything, but they're creating so much. I can't follow everything.
Well, you're like me with the novels. I just can't. I think I'm 3 deep into the new canon, and like every month I fall further and further behind.
Yeah,
I try to keep up with the Skyhoppers, and I don't know how they do it. They chew through these books like it's unbelievable.
I know. So. That's the voracious appetite of the young, Rob.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I forget you. They're 20 years our junior.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that helps. That helps. They can have nights later than 9 p.m. Can you imagine that?
No, I couldn't.
Okay, I think should we pop a quick break in here, and then when we come back, we can look at some of the comic books that we've been following.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, a roundup on a couple of Darths. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, you can do so by becoming a TSW sponsor. For as little as £1 per month, given securely via PayPal, you'll help us keep the lights on here at Talk Star Wars. When you become a TSW sponsor, we will automatically make you a TSW VIP. As a VIP, you'll get access to an exclusive stream of content that provides you with a daily podcast called the TSW Kessel Run, membership to the TSW VIP Facebook group, priority releases of shows such as the TSW Toy Box and TSW Comics. You'll also get priority access to the TSW Feature Com series and weekly Facebook Live and AMA sessions. There are also newsletters and a monthly prize draw. Head to talkstarwars.co.uk/support and become a TSW sponsor today, and the Force will be with you, always. And we're back. Okay, so we've got a couple of guys named Darth waiting for us. And the first one we're going to do, now the series is complete, I think we're going to have a look at the Darth Maul. I was actually quite surprised that this turned out to be just a 5-issue run. I don't know what I was expecting. I don't think I was prepared for that.
Actually, I was okay with it. It's almost like when he, are we spoiling or are we just giving generalizations?
I think everything's out and ready for people to consume. I think it's safe to say. Let's give a spoiler warning. If you don't want to, be spoiled for the Maul series, then perhaps just skip ahead a few minutes and.
Just quick 5 minutes and we'll be done. Just because to wrap it up, the spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. All right. So when he ends up back with the Emperor, and he's right back to where he started. This is before the events of Phantom Menace. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
There's no wrinkle. It's not like he's dropped a stone in the pond of Star Wars canon and we're going to see a ripple that's going to be further on down the line. It's gone. Like he did what he did. He found a Padawan, he did his battle and then boom, he's back with the Emperor. And the big spoiler was the Emperor knew what he was doing all along.
Yeah. I mean, you say the big spoiler. I did feel it fell a little flat for me. I have to be honest. It didn't feel like there was enough story there for me to really get much out of. A continuing series, I would have felt was much more interesting. But this just seems to be such a small little side adventure. Like you say, it's just a little blip out the side of Maul's storyline. It doesn't impact anything going forward. Doesn't really develop that character in any way. When we met him, we knew he had a bloodlust for Jedi. When we left him, he had a bloodlust for Jedi and a very confused look on that top half of his body. But what did it really do? There's a couple of cool scenes, but it didn't really do much to grow that character or really grow canon, to grow Star Wars lore in any way.
No, it just reaffirmed. Like he went out, he had an itch, he scratched it, realized it's like it's not gonna go away. Like, and his, like you said, his bloodlust, and the Emperor has his thumb on everything. So I think visually it was a great story. I love the story as it was going. It like you said, it fell flat for me on the last few pages, but all in all, it's worth a read. It's not gonna. Also, too, it's not compulsory reading to know the entire nuance of Darth Maul character. It's just if you like a good story and you like the art, and like we said before, usually the Sith, they look so great, they leap off the page.
Yeah.
Especially Darth Maul. What a joy he must have been to. I'm not an artist personally, but I can imagine if I've been drawing Archie comics and all of a sudden, hey, you want to do Darth Maul? Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I'm with you. I think that Maul's got a couple of really interesting silhouettes, because if you see him with that hood down, you've got the horns. If you see him with the hood up, that's a unique silhouette for that character in full-on Sith mode. That I'll admit that to me this boils down to would I recommend it as a read or not? And yes, I would recommend this as a read. It doesn't blow the lid off Star Wars,
No.
but it is very true to the character. There are some cool bits in there, like the bar fight very early on, the bar fight where he's trying to resist using the lightsaber because he doesn't want to reveal himself too much. The inclusion of Cad Bane, that stuff's great. Honora Singh, that stuff's great. I got very excited when they dropped the that team and the Padawan down on the planet, on the moon, and I thought, well, here we go, we're going to get some Predator style suspense, and I don't think that really ever came off. So I felt like it almost felt to me like it was a book that was cancelled. And it's like, let's just wrap this up. Let's just get this done and move on to the next thing. And I know that's not the case, but that's how it felt.
Yeah, aside from the last book, obviously, like I think we've been pretty consistent rating all the Darth Maul books. Like I know within Star Wars, they were all 8s or 9s out of 10s. Like, in the Star Wars Marvel, we've explained this before,
Of course.
But I see overall 5-book arc, I think I'd put it around a 7 just because of where it left us. Like, you know what I mean? Like each book is great to read and they're very entertaining, but as an entire arc, yeah, it's good, but it's not mandatory. It's definitely not.
Yeah,
I would read it if you enjoy it. If you enjoy just another look at Darth Maul, but you're not getting. It's basically more of the same, but in a different medium, and that's great on its own. I'm not putting down the books. I'm just saying the arc kind of left us a little flat.
yeah, that is, yeah, that's perfect. I think that's I would recommend it as a read. It's not, if you didn't read it, you're not going to miss it out on anything, and that's what I think is a bit of a pity, because you know these books are being overseen by the story group. You know that they could lay in some details there that. My wish would be, and this is a high hope, I think, my wish would be that I could read this run of comic books, pop the Phantom Menace on and go, oh yeah, now I'm seeing that differently. You know, if that was the case, if they could have dropped something in, you know, that short film that we saw recently on YouTube about Darth Maul and how he goes up against an apprentice in that short video, like 17-minute video or whatever it was. That did more of that for me than this run of official canon comic books.
Yeah,
that did more of, oh, that's, you know, there was some sympathy there for him, or you know, it made him a slightly more sympathetic character, or he had some compassion in there somewhere. And maybe the act of his training was to purge that. That did more for me in that short film than this run of comic books did, and I think that's a pity.
Yeah, and I think too. I know that these things are all timed, and there's somebody overwatching it all. But I think knowing that the Rebels episode where Obi-Wan and Maul face off, was it Twin Sons or?
Yes, it was. Yeah, Twin Sons.
Yeah, twins at the end of this last season, and then boom! As soon as that episode airs, whether it was within a week or 2 weeks, we had a new Darth Maul run. Like, it seemed convenient, which was great, and everybody was all, oh, wow, we just saw this whole thing with Darth Maul, and now we get another peek at him. And I think Darth Maul has this thing. He came out in Phantom Menace. We saw one amazing fight scene in the movie, and we saw quick glimpses of him throughout, like, spattered throughout the first movie, and then he was gone.
Yeah.
And it was like, you have this fantastic villain, like the actor, the makeup, the moves, double-bladed lightsaber, all this cool stuff, and boom, he's gone. It's like, oh wow, we really missed out here. Like, it's, and then they brought him back in Clone Wars, and it's like, okay, that's good. He has a brother, and the Savage Opress, and it's all this storyline, and then they bring him back again for Rebels. This one wasn't necessary.
No. Do you know what, on the main Talk Star Wars podcast this week, or well, episode 81, because when this comes out, it won't be this week, right. I'm sure. Ads Hillier asked a question about how we'd feel about a movie that tells the Sith's story run in parallel with Phantom Menace. So every now and then you dip into the storyline of Phantom Menace. So you'd see Maul and you'd see Sidious in the context of the Phantom Menace, and then you go back to their own story. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. Perhaps it would work well in multimedia, but this book was the opportunity to do that. Have a couple of issues that sort of tangent into the events of the Phantom Menace, so Maul on Tatooine and Maul on Naboo, but the rest of the time you'd be able to see him doing something else.
Yeah.
And then that adds a layer to canon inside of the story we already know.
Well, that's absolutely. If that's, I would love that. But if I know it's not canon anymore, but I know in the Darth Plagueis novel, nearing the end when they reach the timeline of the timeline starts to match up with Phantom Menace, you do see that other side. You see, even before Palpatine becomes Chancellor, you see the run up to that. But obviously now that's not canon. But if Az is interested, if you read Darth Plagueis, you get I think you start when Palpatine is like in high school, like teenager age. But when the book develops and it goes through near the end of the book or the last third, it matches up with what we know in the movies. So you see that whole behind the scenes stuff. Again, of course, now that's not canon, but I'm completely, if they redid it, I'd be really intrigued.
Well, they did Thrawn, so maybe they can do something with this. We don't know what's going to play out in the movies yet and how that might impact on.
Well, apparently there's a Plagueis theory going out there. Something about, I don't know. I've heard once or twice on the Talk Star Wars podcast.
Yeah, I may be guilty of burping up one or two Plagueis theories. But let's move on from Maul. I think final thoughts on the Maul series, Rob. I recommend to people. I recommend, but not necessarily a must-read.
Yes, recommend each individual book on their own. They're usually an 8 or a 9 out of 10 in the Star Wars canon Marvel books, but as a whole, I think 7 out of 10. Like it's not necessary. It's entertaining. It's visually stunning, but not necessary.
Yeah, beautifully made book. Okay. Let's talk about the other big Darth, Vader. So we're up to issue 4 at the time of recording. I just read issue 4 this morning. What are your thoughts on this new series? Because this is the reason we're doing this podcast, isn't it? This is what started everything off.
Yes, we got like just like now how we're looking forward to the Phasma books. We were looking forward to the new Darth Vader, and that's when you had the idea of, hey, we should lead up to this. And yeah, I think it's great. Again, for any spoilers, I'm sure everybody who's listening to this show has read this. So we are just finished issue number 4. So how this is where it ends, where Vader is still on the hunt for that elusive Jedi lightsaber. Because what they said in the previous books, if people don't know, they mentioned, okay, Sith can get a lightsaber, but they have to get it by defeating a Jedi if they want that crystal, and then they bleed the crystal, and that's how they get their red lightsabers. Of course, now after Order 66, where does Vader find a Jedi to defeat? And he finds one, and then he's fighting him, and then he actually takes a pretty good beating in this last book.
He really does, doesn't he? Yeah. He really does. In fact, the first page, the first panel is a full page, a splash page of Vader laying on a rock with one leg missing. Bearing in mind, he's fresh off the production line at this point, isn't he, Vader?
Yeah.
So this armor's not very old. He hasn't quite gotten used to it yet, and it's already in ruins. Yes.
And what does he do? There's a droid around, and he takes pieces and kind of fixes himself. Yeah, he uses the Force, and of course Anakin's knowledge of, which I thought was great, because he's basically, you see Vader with one of his legs broken off, and then he gets replacement parts from another droid that was damaged, and because we know Anakin and his ability to fix things, it wasn't like he just did it. Oh, it's Darth Vader. Of course he knows how to do it. We know through even a whole bunch of movies and all this canon that he's a tinkerer. Great. Yeah, exactly. He can do this. Even if he wasn't a Sith Lord, he'd be able to patch himself up. So yeah, he patches himself up, and then we don't see the ultimate defeat at the end, but how does he defeat the Jedi get the upper hand? He uses the Jedi is protecting people in a city, and then he uses his compassion for the people to defeat him ultimately.
Exactly. So. I think this Jedi Master Kirak Infilar, such a promising character, and but the only thing I think he's really illustrated for us is just how weak the Jedi are through their compassion for other beings.
Yes.
And the entire city that's at risk, and he leaves himself open to Vader, and Vader then it shows just how corrupt Anakin is in this persona of Vader now, that he will put somebody in that situation and take advantage of it. And not only, spoilers for this book, but not only does he kill the Jedi, but he leaves the Jedi alive long enough to watch the destruction of the city
that he's been protecting.
And the death of everybody there, and then he kills the Jedi.
Well, that's just because you see, I know in the issue 3, the Jedi beats Vader, and that's why we see him in ruins in the beginning of issue 4. And then he patches himself up. He goes back, and you think, well, if he couldn't beat him when he was, like you said, fresh off the medical table, like how is he going to do him like as patchwork? And then Anakin, of course, figures it out. He goes, well, they're on a huge dam overlooking the city, and then he realizes, he loves he's protecting these people, so he wrecks the dam and makes the Jedi watch. So it's pitch black, isn't it? It's really dark. It's really cruel, and it just, I think, just shows Vader up for the monster that he is. Really, just reframes that character for me slightly. Well, one thing I know, maybe we'll see it's necessary as we go further through the movies, but one thing this new Jedi character brings to the forefront is there are Jedi out there who, before the Clone Wars, took a vow of basically, I'm not going to hurt anybody, I'm not going to be a general, I'm not going to be a peacemaker, I'm just going to go and be one with the Force and be on their own. But they'll still be a Jedi. I'm not saying they're gray, and of course, the gray Jedi thing, I'm not getting into that topic or the definition, or if there even is such a thing. Yeah. But so now we know going forward, there could be Jedi out there that we don't know about that weren't affected by Order 66.
That's the Barish vow you're referring to.
Yes, exactly.
This is a concept. This is something I've found most exciting about this book series already, is how it's much like Maul failed to really do. This has been adding elements to Star Wars canon, Star Wars lore by the truckload. Yep. So the concept that you have to kill a Jedi and take the weapon and bleed the crystal in order for you to possess the blade, that is exciting and new and fresh, and we kind of got hints that it was going in that direction. I think it's going to pay off in the films. You know, we spoke a long time ago, Rob, about how the transfer of information might start flowing the other way. From the books and the small screen up to the big screen. And this Barish vow, I think, is a really fascinating, really exciting concept that I think is just educating us in those terms so that we can understand what Luke's doing in Last Jedi. Because I think Luke's taken the Barish vow. That's my personal opinion. And that's why he's out of the mainstream. Yeah,
I think I think you may be right. Like, that's... I don't know whether he knows it or not, or whether they're gonna. But like, this is kind of, I don't want to tumbling saber this, but this is creating a loophole. You know, like where Luke can, like, this is if we're gonna explain something away, and they're like, look, there it is, it's in canon. So,
well, it's also answering a question that no one knew to answer. No one knew to ask as well, because the Barish vow explains Yoda's absence from galactic events. It explains Obi-Wan's absence from as if we needed any more than the fact that Obi-Wan was protecting Luke on Tatooine. Yeah. The Barish vow would be the thing that helps Obi-Wan deal with the fact that he's sitting out galactic events. And this guy comments that he felt the destruction of the Jedi. This Infilar, this Jedi, Kirak Infilar, he felt the destruction of the Jedi. He felt the purge through the Force, much like Obi-Wan feels the destruction of Alderaan. So you know Obi-Wan and Yoda felt that, their friends dying. They felt that. The Barish vow would have given them the discipline and the conviction to remain in hiding when every cell in their being must have been crying out to go and get involved and go and help.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like it's basically, like you said, it's giving us everything we want out of these comics. Because it's almost like, how do I say this? Like, if we're comparing Darth Vader to the Darth Maul was the same thing as if we picked up one of the older comics that aren't canon anymore.
Yeah.
You mean, from the Dark Horse. So they're still entertaining, still Star Wars, still fantastic art, well written, great to read, but don't have any bearing on what we're currently in now.
Mm-hmm.
But with this Darth Vader book, we can't say for sure, but it looks like there's a lot of seeds being planted here for future.
In an episode of Talk Star Wars Comics that we record after The Last Jedi comes out, Rob, I think we might be having a conversation where we say, why didn't they use the Barish Vowel? It makes so much sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope that this is sort of sowing the seeds for that. I hope that they don't introduce such a fantastic concept and not play it up onto the big screen to explain where Luke's been. It's too good for that. And it also, I think this could be used to explain away Kanan and Ezra's absence from events of the OT, and who knows what's going to happen with Ahsoka. Maybe even it could explain Ahsoka. Did the Bendu take the Barish Vowel? Was he, could this be something that it trickles down into these other characters and explains a lot of absences away?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, they're literally creating loopholes. Yeah. I mean, they're finding cracks in the canon. Everything is not all black and white or light and dark. And I'm not saying gray, I'm just saying you can be light side, but you don't have to partake in the Clone War. Like, you can be dark side, but you don't have to partake with the Emperor. You can just be a dark Force user, so. I like it.
I don't know if someone's having a bit of fun with us, or maybe being a bit cruel to fandom, but you've mentioned it twice now. The Grey Jedi is a concept that we've all agreed is an oxymoron, and if one was to be grey, by definition, you wouldn't be a Jedi. But this Jedi is actually grey. His skin colour, his hair is white, his skin is grey. So technically, he is a grey Jedi. I think somebody may have been having a bit of fun at our expense.
That's just it. Yeah, we can. I think somebody's had their ear to the ground, and they're
We can now officially say, yes, there is a Grey Jedi out there. Well, there is until issue 4.
Hey, anybody listens to my regular podcast, they know I'm a practicing atheist. So if that means any, I guess if that can be a thing, then I guess Grey Jedi can be a thing too. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm liking this. I'm liking this series so far. I know we're only 4 issues in. Excuse me. The biggest problem I've got with it at the moment is that at least one of the books so far went so quickly because there was so little story. It was mainly action. The one where I think Vader come off worse in the duel and ended up in the canyon on the rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that went far too quickly for my liking, and I think that book might work better when you read this series all at once.
Yep.
In a graphic novel form, because you'll pass over that issue and it will just seem like filler. And to me, it seemed like a bit of a waste that I had to wait another month to get meaty story.
That's just it. When you're watching, or say if you're watching an animated series and that was like a lot of these Rebels episodes, or even that Twin Suns episode where you see Ezra in the desert and there's a lot of panning shots and you're forced to actually take it in, and it's stunning to watch. But when you're reading these comic books and you're just breezing through these panels with no dialogue, and granted, yes, the picture does say 1,000 words, but as Star Wars, like, we just want to consume. Okay, what's next? We just can't wait for the next thing. We don't stop and smell the roses, and these roses are these panels.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah, they are the visual storytelling, the character designs. The new concept, like that book I complained about how short it was, but it had that droid in it. It had the droid's blade that Vader would later use. So there's some interesting stuff in there. It just a little bit brief, but later on in context will probably work much better than it did for me on the first read, I think. But I highly recommend this. But I'm sure if people are listening to this podcast, they're already on this book. So I would appreciate some feedback. I would love to hear what people think of it, what listeners think of this series, what their thoughts are, what their fears are for where it's going, and how much they're reading into things like the Barish Vow and the bleeding of crystals. Is it becoming too complicated? Is the whole thing with the defeating the Jedi, taking the lightsaber, bleeding the crystal, and I know our friend Rob Wade has an issue with this. It's a little bit Harry Potter with defeat the wizard and master the wand. There's a little bit of that, I think, sneaking into Star Wars now, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, but I would like to hear other people's opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would totally agree. I would love to hear what people think. Like, this is a whole can of worms to open. Like, this is, I think it's like you guys do on the Talk Star Wars main show. This is just another one of those. It's one of those things. We start peeling the edge of the paper and everything just comes loose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. We could end up with a deluge of new elements from Star Wars that get communicated to us through these books that will help recontextualize or retcon, dare I say it, retcon some of the elements of Star Wars, like what motivated Obi-Wan to stay out of events. Barish Vow. I love this idea that these little elements of storytelling could feed information upward to the big screen. I love that very much.
Yep. Excellent.
Okay. I think we're done for this month. I think, Rob, I don't know how you feel, but obviously we'll have another Darth Vader to cover next month, but I might try and get that Lando series read so that we might be able to look at that next month, do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because we're going to have, after this, we're going to have obviously Thrawn and Phasma and more Vader and like everything. It's going to start to pile up before the lead up to The Last Jedi. So that's a perfect time to.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to go back. And I'm going to try and get caught up on Afra as well, but we can go back and look at some of these limited runs that we missed. Well, certainly that I missed, and chat about that. So Lando feels like a good place for me to start, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to say real quick before we hop off, Hamilton, Ontario. That's kind of in between where me and Jay, VIP of the Star Wars of the Talk Star Wars. We're in Hamilton. There's a Comic Con going on between September 30th and October 1st. And Paul Blake and Tim Rose, that's the Guido and Admiral Akbar themselves will be there. So hopefully I'll get a chance to speak with them a little bit. I know it's not comic related, but it is Star Wars. And also, too, I will be there all that weekend. So if you can tweet at me at RobertMMCast, if you're in Hamilton, Ontario and want to meet up, I will be there all weekend. Also, too, I will be at Fan Expo in Toronto. That's the one where Dave Filoni's popping down there. He's going to be doing a thing on the upcoming Rebel season. And I believe that is that's coming up at the end of this month. Again, the 30th, between the 30th and the 2nd of September.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we'll be down there and checking out all the Comic-Con goodness. So
people need to seek you out when they're there, Rob, and say hi.
Yes.
That would be great stuff.
Well, I know I'll be there on the Fan Expo. I'll be there September 2nd. I will be there all day from morning till night. So if they want to reach out or even talk Star Wars, pardon the pun, but
hey, look how that worked out.
Yeah, that's weird, eh? Yeah, and again in Hamilton, so I'll be there. And of course, I think there's another one in London, Ontario, which I'll be going to in the future, but I think that lands in the middle of October sometime. So yeah, but look, usually if there's one Southern Ontario, you can look me up, and I'm bound to make an appearance somewhere.
Great stuff. That's awesome. How exciting. I'm envious that you have cons to go to, and I have.
Well, of course, I bought my wife she's getting a photo session with them. What's his name? Who plays on from The Walking Dead? He's the biker looking guy.
Oh, yeah, plays Daryl.
Yes.
Oh, Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus. Yes, that's right. So yes, I bought my wife a photo session with him, so I get to go to. I get to go to a con, and of course, having a 13-year. Well, hey, I don't. I'm not a jealous guy. That's hey. She gets 5 minutes with a celebrity. That's fine and dandy with me. That's.
She lives with the celebrity, Rob.
Oh, you're too kind.
Podcast champion.
And of course, I have a 13-year-old daughter I've been grooming to enjoy all this good stuff, and she's been helping out with my R2 build.
Oh, excellent.
And she's found an interest because I've invested in a couple 3D printers. And for all her cosplaying stuff, it's just fantastic that happens to have a 3D printer going. And, well, I could just make this thing and that thing and this. So
Brilliant. That's great. That is excellent. More videos, I think, on the way.
To come, yes. I don't want to put out any that are just, here's some technical stuff. I want to, like, when you pull the cover off R2 and you actually see something, oh, wow, hey, he's coming along. So I'm really hoping. I'd love to have him rolling by Last Jedi. I don't think so, but wow, that would be. I wouldn't mind rolling into the movie theater with R2 by my side.
Oh, that would be great. That would be awesome. Fingers crossed that happens for you, mate. I wait with bated breath. How exciting!
Well, I'm not going to rush him to do it, but if it happens, fantastic. All the better. So.
Nice. All right, let's wrap this up. Right, so we're going to come back next month. We're going to be looking at the latest Darth Vader and the limited run of Lando Calrissian. Rob, where can the good people find you between episodes of this here show?
Like I said, you can find me on Twitter at RobertMMCast. And also, too, you can find me on the Talk Star Wars VIP group and on Facebook. I'm always peeking at that every day, so you'll find me poking around there. And also, too, if you are a VIP or are becoming a VIP, hit me up if you want to take part on the TSW Roundtable. That's when I get together with various hosts from around the Star Wars Commonwealth, and we have a couple of VIPs from Talk Star Wars, and they join in on the conversation. So you get to podcast just like we're doing now.
That's great stuff. You'll find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at talkstarwars. And you can also find me now contributing over on the Nerd Room at thenerdroom.net. I put a piece up there about the MCU just last week that seems to have caught a few people's imagination. I think you should head over there if you've got any interest in the Fantastic Four. Okay, right. Like we say, we'll see you next week. No, we'll see you next month. Goodness me. Me and these schedules. I don't know if I'm doing a daily podcast, a weekly podcast, or a monthly podcast. All right, everybody. We'll see you next month. Have a good one.
See you later.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
the Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
and the Nerd Room Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com and take your first steps into a larger world.